We're gonna start the first day of the trial with, oh god, the first day of the trial is gonna have that little kid. Ugh. 23rd October, 8:52 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. Now I gotta wonder how they're gonna do his crying. I can't believe it's been 6 months since I was last allowed to work in court. And now, here I am, back at the Old Bailey. Hi, Albert! Mr. Naruhodo. Good morning, Professor Hairbrain. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. The atmospheric pressure in here is off the charts. I never felt anything like it. It's crushing me. I feel it every time I'm here. That gravity. Well, this is Britain's highest court. But are you telling me it's fitted with some kind of device that can actually control air pressure? I think it's all in our head. I think it's probably all in the mind. Thanks, Naruhodo! I don't mean to read your mind, Naruhodo. Yes, well, you won't let me down, will you, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm counting on you in today's trial to save my life. To save the secret of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine from being made public. Sir, I think there's something more important than this right now, than, like, protecting a device. Yes, I understand. I know what I have to do. I think we need to get our priorities straight. I have to establish that the explosion 2 days ago was nothing more than an unfortunate accident. Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, really. Justice will prevail. My considerations, Mr. Naruhodo. You appear to have been lumbered with the most tiresome case here. I don't know who's talking. It's Sherlock. Okay, I had a guess. Mr. Sholmes, I didn't expect to see you here.
That was very mean, Runo, leaving me alone at home with Hurley. It took me at least an hour to wake him.
Is it? Are you? Sherlock Sholmes? Indeed, sir, I am he. Sherlock Sholmes. He just copied him. Oh, I've heard all about your exploits, even whilst living in Germany.
Yes, Rats magazine is on sale in Germany too.
This month's installment was sublime. Your deduction, The Adventures of the Silver Blaze, was wonderful. Ah yes, a memorable case indeed. It concerned a snake, I seem to recall. No!
No, that was the Speckled Band.
Well, thank you for coming. I do appreciate your support. Thanks for the follow! I'm sorry to disappoint you, my dear fellow, but I'm afraid I can't stay. Of course not. Oh. I have urgent business at Madame Tussauds, and you need to make money, right? You mean your waxwork job? No, the waxwork abduction, of course. Madame has engaged my services. Ah, so you're trying to get to the bottom of that ransom note, are you? The week's wages depends on it, as does the safe return of the waxwork, naturally. As such, I intend to give it my undivided attention. Oh, well, never mind then. I understand. Of course, with my skills of observation and reasoning, resolving the matter will be as easy as proverbial pie. I shall return forthwith. For until I solve the case, I shall have no money to afford a pie of any description.
Oh, then you must absolutely give it your full attention, Hurley.
Quite, Iris, quite. But life is a riddle with irony, you know? Whenever I give something my full attention, I have a quite insatiable desire for a pie. One of the universe's intractable mysteries, you might say. Oh, yes, quite, definitely, absolutely. I totally understand. Do you? Is someone a little starstruck? If Susato was here, Albert and Susato would just go on for days talking about the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. I wish you the very last luck. Best of luck, Professor Hairbrain. Why, thank you. Before I depart, Mr. Naruhodo, a word in your ear, if you please. What's this about? Wax that home. As you have remarkably little grounding in science, I feel I ought to inform you. As compelling as the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis hypothesis may be, a practical implementation such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition. It is quite impossible. But the professor said the demonstration was a success. That's what he said. Yes, it would appear that he fervently believes it was.
I've read Professor Bunnybrain's paper about it too, Runo, and I have to say, I'm sure it can't be done. It could barely be done theoretically, let alone practically.
So he's completely barking up the wrong tree? But how could an experiment that had no possibility of succeeding, in fact, succeed? That's contradictory. It was set up. And it's that contradiction that will be at the heart of the trial, I've no doubt. What's that supposed to mean? Now, I must hurry along. I wish you the best of luck, my dear fellow.
See you later, Hurley. Well, it looks like you're on your own today, Runo. But chin up, you can do it.
Oh, what about you, Iris?
No, I'm afraid I can't help. I have something I need to do.
I see.
It's gonna be a big surprise for you when you find out what it is.
That sounds ominous. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court is about to be in session. Make your way into the courtroom at once. We're on our way. Naruhodo's all by himself in the courtroom today. An experiment that the laws of science says can't possibly succeed. And a scientist who's convinced that it did. That's the riddle you have to unlock here, Ryunosuke. That's the key to this case. Albert Bunnybrain! Bunnybrain is a beautiful name. Nice nickname, Iris. 23rd October, 9:10 a.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. Rubble, 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 rubble.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are sitting today for the public trial of Professor Albert Harebrain.
Sorry, they both started with P.
I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed.
The prosecution is ready. Oh, I guess Damon isn't here for the first day. The defense is ready, my lord. He's all by himself. I'm 6 months out of practice. And what's more, no Susato! I'm without Susato-san today. I got you, Naruhodo! You can't see me, but I got you! I got you! Ugh. Is it just my imagination, or does the air in here feel even more oppressive than usual?
So, I must say I recollect the victim of this case all too well, Mr. Odie Asman.
Mr. Asman was well known as a financier, though that was merely a front for his diverse criminal activities.
It was only a month ago that the man appeared in court, prosecuted by you, Lord Van Zeeks. But the jury unanimously found him not guilty.
Because every member of the jury had been bribed, by the sound of it. These powerful London criminals are prepared to go to extreme lengths to keep their freedom.
But 2 days ago, on 21st October, Mr. Asman met his end. The work of the Reaper, was it?
We don't talk about that. If that is how your lordship would describe divine retribution. But the fact remains that Mr. Asman's death was a direct result of the actions of the accused, Professor Harebrain.
Very well then. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected at random to represent the will of the people. Are the 6 of you ready to fulfill your societal duty?
I'm most gratified to have been selected to carry out this important civic duty, my lord. To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand. Oh gosh, oh golly. It sends shivers down my spine. Science experiments, magic, conjuring tricks, courtroom trials, are nothing more than performances. Any spurious scholar that defiles the reputation of science deserves to hang.
We have to listen to what's said on both sides, defense, and settle on one. That's it, isn't it?
Why? Who let a kid on the jury? Wait, why is a child on the jury?
Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all.
Why the jury's 6 jury's always just that's the police killer Automole look-alike again. And he's as exhausted as ever, it seems. What is going on?
Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, the incident we are here to judge today tragically took place at the Great Exhibition shortly after its opening.
Though the death toll could have been far worse. With the exception of the victim, no one was killed. Nevertheless, he became a real old boy. The dreams of the science being exhibited rapidly turned into a nightmare for the spectators.
A tragic turn of events, and as such, the eyes of all London, no, the whole world will be on this trial. It is our duty to reach a swift and just conclusion, I feel.
How about just a just conclusion?
So, your opening statement, please, Lord Van Zeeks.
At the heart of this incident is technology never before demonstrated anywhere in the world.
One of science's latest developments, I take it. The government is keen to capitalize on the Great Exhibition to improve Britain's technological advantage.
The technology being demonstrated by the accused was described as super high voltage instantaneous kinesis.
Good lord, that's a lot.
It's designed to disassemble human subjects using extremely high voltage electricity. Honestly, just the high voltage part would just make the person just explode, I'm sorry to say, and beam them instantly to another location where they are subsequently reassembled.
Is such a thing even within the realms of possibility?
Well, I don't believe it, that's for sure.
Disassembling people with electricity? My goodness, how shocking!
Ha! The whole idea is absurd. The hypothesis would never stand up to scrutiny.
Sir, I believe you are a fellow of Royal Society, are you not? An expert in your field.
I am, and my word on the matter can be considered final. Instantaneous kinesis is poppycock. So this expert and Mr. Sholmes are in agreement. It's impossible.
What is the prosecution's view on the matter?
The prosecution would assert that the accused's instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a success. What? What rot? Really, Baroque? Okay.
Order!
The professor's hypothesis is currently under investigation by the British government. If it is deemed to have merit, a substantial research grant would be made available. The accused made use of the invention built on his new hypothesis to take Mr. Asmund's life, in order to be the sole benefactor of the grant. But... This disastrous demonstration was no accident. It was carefully designed from the outset to end the life of the victim.
Rubble. Thank you, Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution's stance is clear. But you will now bring forth witnesses to substantiate your claims.
Gladly, my lord. Bailiff, show the first witnesses to the stand. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court. I'm never going to let go of Baroque and the little darling remark.
Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. I was on duty at the demonstration on the day in question and in charge of the following investigation.
Albert Harebrain, scientist. You were born in England, but have been carrying out research in Germany in recent years, correct?
Yes, that's right.
After graduating from university here in Britain, I went to work in Germany and made an amazing discovery. Which is what brought me back. I had to demonstrate my incredible hypothesis at the great exhibition.
What you demonstrated was incredibly alright, an incredible explosion.
But the science was a success. The instantaneous kinesis worked. Everyone saw it. They must have done. Yes, there was a terrible accident, but your priorities, sir. The demonstration of my hypothesis was a success.
Well, that much is undeniable, as shown in this photograph taken by the forensic investigation team. This was taken inside the Crystal Tower, I take it. The centerpiece of the exhibition, no less. That's right, my lord. Seems the victim rammed straight into it. I see. Very well. Submit the photograph as evidence.
Photograph of the victim. A photographic print of the victim taken after he had ostensibly been beamed to the Crystal Tower. It shows an apparent stab wound to the chest.
As the court heard, the victim of the incident was Mr. Odie Asman. There have been a number of allegations made against the man, but putting them aside for the time being, he was the man who financed the research for the experiment and the demonstration itself.
Dead Odie Asman in HD.
I see. So to summarize the situation, the defendant is accused of taking the life of the man who funded his work. Would that be correct? Exactly.
But couldn't it be that the explosion was caused by some malfunction in the apparatus used for the demonstration? That's right. That must be it. My splendid machine. My poor splendid machine.
You saw it yesterday, didn't you? We can't even examine the wreckage thanks to the Special Dispensation of Scientific Equipment Act.
What? The wreckage? The wreckage? I'm so offended! Don't call my baby a wreckage!
But that being the case, how can the facts be established? How can it possibly be determined whether this was an accident or a deliberate and malicious act?
Extremely simply, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
Isn't that right, witness? What? Sorry? Me? No, your neighbor.
Yes, sir, it was murdered, plain and simple. Anyone can state that with the complete certainty.
What? How can he possibly think that?
Thank you, Inspector. I think we had better proceed to formal testimony. You will explain to the court on what grounds you claim the experiment to have been a front for murder.
Witness testimony! A front for murder.
The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck.
I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake.
But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. There was a lesion in his chest where he had clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fella's the only one who could have done it.
But why would I... Okay. I'm still trying to figure out the motive for this, considering that, Mr. Odie Asman did fund his research and everything.
An extraordinary business. In addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart.
Information I would really like to have heard from someone other than the judge.
The coroner says death would have been all but instant from a wound like that.
You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused.
No! That couldn't be further from the truth. I have here the experiment plan document that was submitted to the security team. The victim stood himself inside something called the birdcage, ready to be beamed instantly. To the second level of the Crystal Tower, about 25 yards away.
The experiment did not go according to plan, however. Pringles, man! As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. The blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended. Accordingly, the kinesis resulted in the birdcage materializing in midair. Ooh! From where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the Crystal Tower large round window.
My word. One assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower then.
I don't know. You have to interact with it with different characters. Like, I have Iris right now. There's no other place for the spade. That's the only spot you can interact with the shovel and spade.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident. A terrible accident.
Unfortunately, that excuse can't save you.
No, not considering the sharp murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart.
Murder weapon? What are you saying?
This is the autopsy report submitted by the coroner. The prosecution would like it entered into the court record. You know what, before we continue, I'm really curious what the Dispensation Science Act, whatever crap was before it got changed to that. I'm really curious what it was. Let's see. Gregson, where are you? Technology for research funding. Experiment day. Collaborator funded. Okay. What my friend translated is the special provision for the protection of science and technology. I kind of wish they went with that one over the dispensation whatever, because I have a hard time saying that. Autopsy report. The autopsy report of the victim, Mr. Asman. His neck was broken from the impact of a violent fall, and he was stabbed in the chest with a sharp object.
Rubble. I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance. And the only other person on the stage with Mr. Asman was that disgraceful excuse for a scientist.
Then really, by all accounts, it must have been him.
Hard to think otherwise, really.
Very well, counsel for the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination, please.
Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. You're by yourself, buddy. It's been a while. It has been a while. For you, at least. Before we do anything, let's look at stuff. Okay. There's some sort of lever here. What the? What is this? It looks like a cross between a bow and a gun. I think it's probably used for the same thing too. Crossbow. A weapon found hidden behind a tree under the experimentation stage at the exhibition ground. It turns out that it's a folding crossbow. Hello? It looks like you wind this around in order to draw the bowstring back and create tension. You must be able to fire arrows with a huge amount of force using this device then. In fact, I would imagine it's far more accurate and powerful than a Japanese longbow. Ugh. I really had no idea what I was picking up when I spotted this at the exhibition grounds. This groove here must be where the arrows are loaded, I suppose. So I was right. It's a sort of bow with an automatic firing mechanism. This would be perfect for someone like me who catches his ear with the bowstring 2 times out of 3. Oh, honey! In fact, if I had one of these, maybe I could have beaten Kazuma in Kyoto archery training. Naruto, please. Look, Asogi may excel in archery, but it turns out Naruto is actually really good at archery and horseback. Like, if he's on horseback, he does relatively well. All right, what do we got on the top? Okay, Courtney Sith, hello. Details of victim. ODS man, 47 British, 21st, 220. Hemorrhage of the wound to the chest that pierced the heart inflicted with a sharp implement. A broken vertebrae, most likely resulting from impact after a sudden fall from a considerable height.
Hold it!
Are you suggesting that's because he fell from a considerable height?
Exactly, which highlights something else about this whole rum business.
What's that? The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success.
After the explosion, the cage with the fella inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere in midair. So although the experiment ended in disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur.
Remind us, Professor. What was the cause of the fatal disaster?
Hold it!
So the angle of projection is critical, is it? And you calculated it yourself, personally?
Absolutely. The calculation is far too complicated for anyone but me to carry out.
How convenient.
Only you got it wrong, didn't you?
Yes, that's right. That's the point. The calculation is so complicated, even I can make a mistake.
Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it. No, don't!
I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variable. So I just don't understand how this could have happened.
Obviously, then, you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Aspen was wearing at the time, I suppose. Did you not?
Crackling comets! The answer should have been 3!
So much for safety first. The 3 must be for safety third.
Hold it!
Another fatal injury, you say? That doesn't make any sense.
I didn't think I'd have to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it?
2 right.
Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to his spine snapping in half as well.
But you're saying that's not the case?
You'll get your answer once I finish my fish and chips, if you don't keep butting in every few seconds.
But we all know that's a bottomless bag. Nice meta. The victim plummeted 30 feet into a glass tower. It would be reasonable to assume that as the cause of death. The victim was a cat.
Right, that's what we all thought. But it was a red herring, wasn't it?
Hold it!
The defense knew nothing of this crucial information. The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Sarcastic and insincere? Thanks. So, what was the nature of this sharp object? Among the accused's tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of particular interest. This.
Ah, yes, that would appear to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it?
There he is! My trusty little companion, Andrew!
Andrew? Of course.
Ah, do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I've named them all, you know. We're one big happy family.
Albert, I think you need to go out more and make friends.
Andrew is my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother, Michael, is a crosshead.
Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank.
That isn't... It's blood, beyond all reasonable doubt.
No.
And that's not all. That long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound.
What? What?
Rubble, 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 rubble. Order, order! The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence.
Screwdriver. Professor Harebrain's trusty screwdriver that he named Andrew. There are traces of blood on the tip, and it matches the shape of the victim's wound.
Well, that's nice.
So one of Professor Harebrain's tools is the murder weapon. Great. I know, it's fantastic, Naruto.
Hold it!
What grounds do you have for saying that?
Ah, did you really need to ask? There were only 2 people on that public experimentation stage in front of the whole crowd.
The victim, Mr. Odiasman, and the accused, Professor Harebrain. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive.
That's right. I saw him with my own eyes.
Furthermore, following the explosion and kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body.
In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could possibly have done it.
Oh my god, he's so good.
And Albert Harebrain is the only bloke who fits the bill. Unless you got some other bright idea, Sunshine. In which case, let's hear it.
My learned friend, silence is your answer, Inspector. Ugh. Can't a man have a moment to think?
No.
So that's all the testimony I have to work with. I had no idea the victim had been stabbed. That changes everything. Did Van Zieks keep that to himself until now on purpose? To gain advantage? Oh well. I suppose all I can do is press these witnesses for much new information as possible. I know, I love, Albert's, voice choice is so good.
Hold it! Great Scott!
God, he's so good.
Excuse me.
Professor Harebrain, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Professor! Huh? Oh, sorry! I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of electrolysis to separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that? It seems as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Oh! Yes, that's right, of course! He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stabbed a victim, eh?
I don't know, but there's no way that I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Aspen, as you say. Eh? Explain, please, Professor. Of course, this cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded animals, with blood running continuously through their veins.
I had heard.
Then surely you see, if I plunged something the size of Andrew into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood swimming pool. He's right. But thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time. And yet, not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Did you find blood on the stage?
Well, no, I suppose not.
You see, not one.
True. I didn't see anything like that.
Well done, Professor. That was a great counter-argument. Yay, Albert! Good man.
Order!
Pardon me as I pour this wine. Pray, forgive the discourtesy if I savor a drop from my hollow chalice to accompany my old friend's adduction. Adduction? Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Baroque, but I'm really not patch on you. And then the toast was toast. No, you're not. No? You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. I have? a particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound. Did he leave the screwdriver in him?
Ah, of course.
Inspector, enlighten the court, please.
Yes, sir.
Where are they going with this?
Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body while he was beamed through the air.
Hold it!
Why would you think that, Inspector?
With any wound, it's only when you pull the weapon out that profuse bleeding occurs. While it's still lodged in the body, it acts as a stopper of sorts. For want of a better word.
I see. You don't need a medical degree to be aware of this fact. It's common knowledge for any investigator. Where's Hisada-san when you need her? She made the same mistake, I'm sorry to say, Naruto.
If you ask me, this bloke masked what he was doing from view with his body before stabbing Asman in the chest. And then he beamed the victim off the stage with his fancy device. The screwdriver's still where he planted it.
But wait a minute, we found the screwdriver at... Wait, hold on. The screwdriver didn't go. We found it at the site. I would never do such a thing. Not to my precious tools. I would never use them for such dirty work. You only use tools for their intended purpose. That's common knowledge for any scientist. The fact remains, the lack of blood at the scene can easily be explained, as the prosecution has demonstrated. So that's all the testimony I have to work with. Ba. Okay, alright, I think we're gonna present the last one because Sir, we were both there. We both found the screwdriver at the site. We didn't find it at Crystal Tower. I think I need to actually present the screwdriver, but give me a moment, I need to look at this. This is blood. Mr. Asman's, no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. Poor Naruto. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. Oh, good thing I did this! Was found poking through the grill in the base of what remains of the kinesis machine. It's a very distinctive handle. Okay, good. I'm glad I checked that, just in case. I've learned my lesson! Sir! You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal?
Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding.
It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world. Yes, but the screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through the metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson?
Now you come to mention it, yes.
Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravene the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act?
No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing.
Yes, that's true. This screwdriver was in plain sight, on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it?
What are you getting at?
If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. That's right. It should have been beamed across to the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Asman, and been found still lodged in the victim's chest. That's a big fat oversight, Gregson, considering you were there.
Order!
How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't... It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously that should have been beamed to the destination as well. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. Oh, Naruhodo. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in this argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Oh, he's challenging you, sir. He's challenging you. Lord Van Zeeks is stumped. I got you. Ah! Benji! Albert! Holy crap, that hold it! Sir!
Did you have something to say, witness?
Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equation holds. Mr. Naruhodo, don't worry. About what? Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asmund's chest. Albert? My trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations. Albert! That's not gonna help you! What? Why Otto into the audience? Wow, he threw that in pretty early into the case. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly, we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation? Just when I found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientist. Oh boy, they are a handful, aren't they, Naruhodo?
Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with a scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold.
In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. In the name of Apollo, huh? I don't know about this testimony, but sure, the inconsistency explained. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asmund was the patron of my research. Without him, my work would have been possible. So, wait a minute. Oh, he's got... No, wait, his glasses wouldn't have... His glasses are made of metal, right? I was like, wait, are you sure about that? Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. Yeah, I see the buckles is wood, so I was like, wait, where's the metal? It looks like glasses? Also, sir, are you trying to help this case or go against your case?
So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is...
that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis.
In other words...
In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is an inconsistency. Wait, is the cage made of metal too? No, it's wood. Okay.
And
therefore, Professor Albert Hairbrain could still have been the killer. Thanks for helping, friend. My great hypothesis hold, you see. Sir! We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason.
I was not addressing you, witness.
Professor Hairbrain.
Yes?
Whose side are you on here? I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. Sir! Tone down your scientist here! Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. Let's see how you cross-examined his testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. Please. What are you doing, Albert?
Hold it!
And yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem. But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know? Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to your mind. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. The scatterbrain even forgets my name at times. What? So Lord Van Zig really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. Okay. That was great. Also, Albert, why did you forget your friend's name?
Hold it!
Your hypothesis states it, so this isn't proven yet. No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can't be decomposed by electrolysis. Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct. What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy? It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made of wood, you see? Sorry, the birdcage? Yes, that's what I called the C. obtusa cage in which Mr. Asmund was placed for the kinesis. The real Baroque was the friends we made alone.
Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of timber of some sort.
I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on stage if it was made of metal, correct?
Yes, that's it. Yes. It all fits perfectly with the mathematical method. But the ultimate conclusion, then, is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Indeed, sir.
Someone beam me out of this nightmare. You this defendant is quite a handful, isn't it, Naruhodo? But quite the opposite of Mangodal, that's for sure. Or, excuse me, McGilded. You seem to be pleased by that. Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased? No. I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asmund losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse. I know that. No, you're quite right.
Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Asmund?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project. And the research grant, of course.
Hold it!
How did you come to know Mr. Asmund in the first place? Tiny book! A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. That's really little.
That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles.
I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise, but at the time I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. How do you water down water? How does that work? But Mr. Aspen read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory. I love how it has little tiny text saying science. How cute. And I offered you money to help fund your work. Exactly! That's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical sides of things, and Mr. Aspen provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the three of us produced that fantastic machine together. The machine that you brought to the great exhibition to demonstrate. We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I didn't understand all the side of things. Mr. Aspen took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything. Hey, who's this third person we keep talking about, the engineer? Maybe we should talk about him.
Hold it!
Because clearly, you seem to care a lot about this guy. So you don't seem to be the killer. So what about this third guy? When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean that you were involved in its construction? Yes! Well, no, not exactly. I'm not good with practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer. Little remains of your creation now, though, following the explosion. Repair will no doubt be impossible. Yes, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Aspen and I toiled over that machine for so long. We put our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony, then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if this hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? Yeah, it is! I'm gonna present something.
Objection!
Professor Harebrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No, metal can't... That's not... metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis is correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal rimmed spectacles would be found in the same place. Ah, my hypothesis! My hypothesis! Professor Harebrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Ah! Sir, calm down.
Order! Counsel, what is the implication of this?
He's so much more worried about this hypothesis than getting killed right now. If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound! I proved it that day! The experiment was a success! The experiment was proof of all my work! Objection. If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of Royal Society.
Yes, juror number 4. Go ahead.
As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait, great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect? It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No! No, never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis! It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act! What the devil is that blasted act all about, eh? Who made up such a daft rule? I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor?
Objection!
Professor Harebrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public. He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
Excuse me, did I just not mention about a grant earlier? He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. If the government was foolish enough to have deemed this man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would the value of such a grant? £10? You're an order of magnitude, madam. You're an order of magnitude out, madam. £500 a year.
Oh, you could live handsome on that much for years.
Again, who let the kid up for the jury? The society noticed an increase in bogus public demonstration in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you. Rubble, 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 rubble. No, I haven't deceived anyone! At least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound. The science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
Only a yearful. No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success. Baroque! And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused. Baroque. Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may.
Yes, Lord Van Zieks.
The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand.
New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement?
They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses.
Very well. The court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident.
The prosecution's stance is clear. The experiment was no poste. What is poste? I know they're going for accuracy, but also, like, I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'm sorry. Poste? Postiche? 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 I don't. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage. Therefore, before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Oh, yes. Postiche? Okay, it's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? Postiche.
We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand.
Meanwhile, Naruhodo is going to be yelling at Albert and be like, "Stop ruining this case!" As you wish, my lord.
Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes.
Bing! Is this a to be continue, or are we just gonna... Oh, okay, it's a to be continue. Alright then, cool. I'm gonna go grab something to munch on then. We'll come back at, it is 8 o'clock for me, so 8:15. 8:15, so 15 minutes from now.